Hi everybody, I'm Chris G and welcome to another episode of the Habs360 Podcast featured on allhabs.net. On this week's episode that aired on April 27th, myself along with my co-hosts Peter and George spoke about the Habs as they prepare for their playoff run. But before, I asked George what he thought about the recent games that the Canadiens played on the road.
Unfortunately, I didn't see much from the Montreal Canadiens. Against the New Jersey Devils, we came out flat. We picked it up a bit in the second, but not enough to win the game. And then against the Winnipeg Jets, let's be honest, guys, I think the only reason we won that game is because between the second and the third period, Winnipeg found out they were officially eliminated from the playoffs and they had a letdown. So I am not convinced that the Montreal Canadiens have what it takes going into the playoffs, and I'm worried.
So Pete, what did this week tell you about the Montreal Canadiens?
What it told me is pretty much what we've been saying ever since that famous game in Buffalo where the Habs won and clinched a playoff spot. They went on a downward spiral after that. We mentioned here a couple of times that they're not giving their 100% now because they've clinched that playoff spot, and that was the goal at the start of the season. And further proof to that was, like George said, I mean, we're not inventing this stuff up, like, look at the game against Winnipeg. Even I predicted it here on Habs360 that the Jets would win that game because they would still be in that playoff hunt to clinch a playoff spot, and that's exactly how it was in the first two periods. They go in the dressing room in the second intermission only to find out that they've been officially eliminated because of the results of earlier that night. And that's it. They just didn't show up in the third. The Habs had an easy third period and came from behind to win that hockey game. So we're not inventing this stuff up. It happens elsewhere too.
And unfortunately, like me and you, Peter, last week when we made our predictions, we knew the Canadiens, we predicted the Canadiens would lose 2 out of 3 games. We just got the order wrong. We thought the Devils would have been the easy win. But it continued to that trend that started after the game in Buffalo, was the team slowed down. They were giving their 100%, and I tend to agree a little bit with George with what he said about the Winnipeg Jets. The first 2 periods when the Jets were still officially in it, it was still a tight game. And then it was during intermission where they found out that they were officially eliminated, where the Montreal Canadiens took over and scored, I think it was 2 or 3 goals in the third period to take the win. So now the question is, George, do you think the players, is it easy, like with a snap of a finger, to turn a switch back on, or do you think they've dug themselves in a hole?
They've dug themselves in a hole. I think the only player that has a switch that can be turned on and off is Sidney Crosby. But besides that, everybody else, you can't just work hard, stop working, and then expect to pick up right where you left off. It's going to take a few games of hard work and sweat and effort to come back to where you were. And if we face the Leafs in the first round, I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be a quick exit for the Montreal Canadiens. Might even be a 4-game sweep. Some people might think I'm exaggerating, but it might happen.
So Pete, do you expect the Canadiens to turn on the switch like that? Do you think it's easy for a professional athlete to turn it around so quick?
It's not as easy as it sounds, because once you get into, once you shift down a speed, it's hard, and it's been like this for a couple of weeks at minimum, It's not that easy to shift back to overdrive and increase the speed and put it back into the same level that it was earlier in the season. I think it's going to be tough, but I have confidence that they will be able to do it.
Yeah, and I also think I think they'll be able to turn on the switch again. Will it happen maybe in game 1 of the series, no matter who they face? Probably not. It'll probably take maybe halfway through game 1. Maybe it'll be as of game 2. But I think for the players, making it to the playoffs is a source of motivation. So when a new season starts, I'm sort of counting that the Canadiens players will be able to step it up and bring back their A game, like we had seen for the rest of the season prior to this stretch of games. 1-877-455-4945 is the phone number to reach us. At Habs360 is our Twitter account. And the big question that we had last week was the play of the goaltender, Carey Price. So he was a big question mark. He had struggled ever since the Toronto game a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know, George, this week, Carey Price, have you seen him play any better? Do you see him more confident? How do you think he is heading into the playoffs?
It is better, but it's not 100% what it should be. In Winnipeg, he made some big saves. He only allowed 2 goals, but he still looked shaky. He still looked like he was fighting the puck, and I'm not 100% convinced that the goaltending will be as solid as it should be in the playoffs.
So, Pete, is Carey Price ready for the playoffs?
Well, I'm pretty sure. I'm confident in Carey Price. I mean, it's a bit like we've been saying. Don't put all the blame on Carey Price for these previous losses. Yes, he's had his part of the blame, but it's the team in general that's just hit the brake pedal a bit, and he just seems to be the person that gets blamed for all these goals going in, but it's not all his fault. And I have total confidence in him, and he will, without necessarily being the leader in the playoffs, I'm 100% sure that he will be performing very well in the playoffs.
And I'm a Carey Price fan. Like, I like Carey Price. I wasn't part of the Carey Price haters that is out there, whether it be in the media or from the fans. But I got to say that I am a little bit concerned for Carey Price's performance since the Canadiens have clinched. So I pulled up some stats. So since the Canadiens clinched, Carey Price has allowed 24 goals on 171 shots. It gives an .860 save percentage. This week it's the Habs360 week. So since last Saturday, he allowed 10 goals on 74 shots, which is an .865 save percentage. And the week before that, 14 goals on 87 shots. That makes an .839 save percentage. And like you said, Peter, we can't really blame the losses on Carey Price. The only one, like I said last week, the only one we could blame was that game in Toronto, where Carey Price allowed 3 goals on 4 shots. Every other game, it was Carey Price didn't have good games, but he wasn't the only one. He wasn't the source of the loss. But in the playoffs, teams need a hot goalie, and they need a goalie who will come up and make those big saves. And besides the game on Thursday night against the Winnipeg Jets, for the rest of the games, he never made those big saves. When the Canadiens needed it, the puck was going in. So that's my main reason of concern when it comes to goaltending. But that being said, I'm still expecting Carey Price to step it up when it comes to the playoffs and bring his A game and help his team win in the first round, no matter who they're facing. So on Thursday night, the Canadiens beat the Jets 4-2 in Winnipeg, and it was their first win in who knows how many in the last how many games. Do you think the slump is over for the Canadiens, or should they still be considered in a slump?
Well, I think it was the self-made slump because they were not playing at 100%, so I think once the playoffs begin, once we get tonight's game out of the way, that this team will focus on the main prize, and that's going far in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I have no worries. I'm 100% sure that this team will perform like they did earlier in the season, pre-Buffalo Sabres game when they clinched.
Winning one game out of your last four does not necessarily end your slump. The slump is considered finished to me when the Montreal Canadiens can get multiple wins back to back to back. Unfortunately, even if they do win tonight's game, doesn't mean the slump is over. The only time we will find out if the slump is really over is in the playoffs, and it might be too late then.
I hope you enjoyed the preview of this week's episode of the Habs360 Podcast. You can listen to the entire episode by clicking on the link on this page. A reminder that you can follow me on Twitter at ChrisG1980, and you can follow Peter at Peter Galanos. Our next episode will be a playoff edition and will air live on Saturday, May 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Follow us on Twitter at Habs360 for more details. Thank you for listening, enjoy playoff hockey, and we will talk to you next week.